My father had just died waiting for a heart transplant, and we waited for 2 years. And we couldn't figure out how could there be a shortage because people die every day. We actually got very angry as a family. We hadn't really spent a lot of time thinking about the donor side of it because you don't want to think about where that heart's going to come from or where that liver's going to come from, because in your mind, and in my mind too, Dad's too, we had conversations about this. Somebody's going to have to die in order for me to live. We didn't know there was agencies out there whose sole mission was to inform the public and recover organs for transplant. But my 15-year-old son was actually curious enough to do something about it, and he started doing some research. And so we had the family conversation. We all got together and we had a discussion about organ donation, and everybody made their minds up what they wanted when they died, and we just had that conversation. Didn't learn a whole lot about it, but we all knew that that was something that we wanted to do. 11 months later, Justin was in an accident.
I met Justin whenever I was a freshman in high school. I had a class with him. He tried to get me to go to a dance with him, but I wouldn't go with him. I think I was a little intimidated because he was so cute. Justin was really a very caring person, just very deeply cared about his friends and his family, just everybody around him. He was very funny. He always wanted to laugh, and he really loved life. If you ask anybody today what they ever thought about him, they would say nothing but good things. He was always there to talk to if you're having a problem or anything. He loved to help, he loved to talk, and everybody loved him.
It was the third day of his sophomore year in high school. His best friend had just gotten a pickup truck that summer. And at a bus stop, they were behind the school bus. Justin jumped into the back of the truck to talk to some friends and tripped and fell and hit the back of his head. I remember looking into one of the female nurses' faces and said, "But I can feel his heart beating. How can he be dead? He can't be. I could feel his heart." And she was crying, and she didn't even answer me. But the look on her face, I knew she was a mom, and I knew she knew. But I still didn't accept it. I still demanded medical attention, and my miracle's going to happen. Justin saved the lives of 5 strangers that day, and very much saved my life too. I know we're the ones that said yes, we're the ones that signed that piece of paper, but he's the one that made the decision. He's the hero. The biggest fear I think someone has when they lose somebody they love is that the world will forget that they were here. Well, I can guarantee you there's 5 families that will never forget that Justin existed. My mission, my purpose maybe, or why God put me here was to finish what Justin started, because when he had that conversation with us, one of the things he told us, or I guess just his simple conclusion, was that if more people knew about organ donation, then his grandfather would still be alive. And then he said the words, "Mama, we got to tell people." When I kind of joined the living world again, which took me quite a while. I was a pretty useless human being for probably about a year. But I called LOPA to see if I could volunteer for them, do something, because the only good thing that happened the day my son died was the transplants. And that was what I was trying to focus on, was the good and the purpose. What was Justin's purpose on earth? Well, it was to save lives. If you knew somebody who had run into a burning building and pulled out 5 people and saved their lives, that would probably make the news. It happens every day when our families say yes. It happens every day. These are heroes. When I started doing this about 5 years ago, people believed in the myths and had a lot of misconceptions about donation. I can answer a lot of their questions from a personal basis, And I think that helps them to come to a decision about donation. In order to become an organ donor, the life-saving organs, heart, lungs, liver, kidneys, pancreas, you have to die one particular way. You have to have an injury to your head that results in swelling of the brain and leads to brain death. And the family has to be told that your loved one is dead, but they can see their loved one's heartbeat on the monitor, and they can feel the heart beating, and they can see the chest rising and falling. So a lot of times this is very, very confusing for a family, especially if they've never heard of it. And only 2% of us die that way. So only 2% of us are potential organ donors to start with. There is the shortage. We all owe it to our families to make a decision and share it with them, because you don't think about it. I didn't. My dad had just died waiting for a heart transplant, and I would never have thought about, what about organ donation? You're in the midst of the absolute worst moment of your life. You're in the most intense grief. You don't think about, what can I do for somebody else? But when somebody asks that question, I know it gave me hope that something good was going to happen, and I see it now with families now. It gives them hope of something good.
I give a lot of lectures and talks about transplantation and organ donation. At the end of my talk, I usually put up a slide of a bright yellow sun with a kind of pink and orange sky, and it's a very pastoral scene with some beach grass waving in the breeze. And I asked the audience, I said, is this a sunrise or a sunset? About half the audience say it's a sunrise, and I asked the others, well, how many think it's a sunset? And the other half think it's a sunset. And I said, well, it's both. The sunset on one person's life is the sunrise on 7 others through organ donation.
After 6 years, his heart is still beating right now, and that is something that is so awesome to me, that something in him is still alive, you know, and it's helping somebody else. He's my hero.